I stood in the hallway of Westfield High, clutching my acceptance letter from the photography club, when Chloe's voice cut through the noise like a knife. She was surrounded by her usual group, the popular girls who ruled our school with designer bags and practiced cruelty. "Look, it's nothing," Chloe announced loudly, making sure everyone could hear. "The girl with the thrift store clothes and the broken camera. What makes you think you belong in photography club?" My cheeks burned as students turned to stare. I was Maya Torres, the scholarship kid who wore secondhand clothes and carried a camera held together with duct tape. My mother cleaned houses for a living. My father had left when I was 6. We lived in a tiny apartment on the wrong side of town. "I got accepted," I said quietly, holding up the letter with trembling hands. Chloe snatched it from me, her perfectly manicured nails flashing. "Oh, please. They probably felt sorry for you. Everyone knows charity cases get into everything now. You're nothing, Maya. You'll always be nothing." She tossed the letter on the floor and walked away, her friends laughing. I picked it up slowly, smoothing the crumpled paper, blinking back tears. They called me nothing. But one day, they'd see everything they missed. I discovered photography 3 years ago when I found an old camera at a garage sale for $5. It was broken, missing parts, barely functional. But I taught myself to fix it using YouTube videos and library books. That camera became my escape. Through the viewfinder, I could transform our rundown neighborhood into something beautiful. I could capture moments of dignity in places others overlooked, the grocery store clerk's tired smile, the street musician's passionate expression, the way morning light hit broken windows. My photography teacher, Ms. Reyes, had been the first person to tell me I had real talent. "You see the world differently, Maya," she'd said, reviewing my portfolio. "You find beauty where others see only poverty. That's a rare gift." She'd encouraged me to apply for the photography club, which was usually dominated by rich kids with expensive equipment. Getting accepted felt like validation, proof that my work mattered, even if my camera was held together with tape. But Chloe's words echoed in my mind. "You're nothing." That night, I lay in bed in the apartment I shared with my mother, listening to her exhausted breathing in the next room. She worked 60 hours a week cleaning other people's houses, so I could stay in Westfield's good school district. I pulled out my camera and looked through old photos. Maybe I was nothing to them, but these images were something. They had to be. The photography club met every Thursday after school in the art building. I arrived early, nervous about facing the other members after Chloe's public humiliation. The room was filled with students unpacking expensive cameras, Canon 5DS, Nikon D850S, equipment worth thousands of dollars. My taped-together camera suddenly felt even more pathetic. "Hey, you're the new girl, right?" A boy with kind eyes approached me. "I'm Felix. Don't worry about the equipment snobs. Ms. Reyes cares about vision, not gear." I smiled gratefully. "Thanks. I'm Maya." "I know," he said. "I've seen your work in the display case. That photo of the bus stop in the rain. Incredible composition." Before I could respond, Chloe swept in with her best friend Amber. Of course, she was in photography club. She probably had a camera worth more than our rent. Ms. Reyes called the meeting to order. "This semester, we're entering the Regional Youth Photography Competition. First place wins $5,000 and a feature in Art Today magazine. I expect each of you to submit your best work." $5,000. My heart raced. That money could change everything for my mother and me. Chloe glanced at me and smirked, as if reading my thoughts. "Some of us won't even bother competing. Why embarrass yourself?" I spent the next month working obsessively on my competition entry. I photographed everything: dawn breaking over our neighborhood, elderly residents on their porches, children playing in fire hydrant spray, my mother's hands after a long day of cleaning. I was searching for something specific, though I wasn't sure what. A story, a truth, a way to make people see what they usually ignored. One Saturday, I was photographing at the community center when I saw Mrs. Chun, an elderly woman who ran a small alteration shop. She was teaching a group of teenage girls how to sew, her weathered hands guiding theirs with infinite patience. The light was perfect, golden afternoon sun streaming through dusty windows, illuminating the concentration on the girls' faces and the wisdom in Mrs. Chen's expression. I captured a series of shots, feeling something click into place. This was it. Not just a photo, but a story about dignity, mentorship, and beauty in unexpected places. I printed the best image using the school's darkroom, a luxury I cherished since I couldn't afford my own equipment. The photograph was powerful, Mrs. Chen's hands overlapping with a student's hands, 3 generations of women captured in a moment of connection and learning. I titled it, Inheritance, and submitted it to the competition. Chloe submitted a glossy fashion photograph she'd taken at some exclusive event, all perfect lighting and expensive clothes. It looked professional. Mine looked real. The waiting was torture. Competition results would be announced in 6 weeks. Meanwhile, school continued with its usual hierarchy. Chloe and her friends treated me like I was invisible except when they wanted entertainment. "Nice shirt, Maya," Amber said one day, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Is that vintage or just old?" "It's from 2015, I replied evenly. "So technically vintage." Chloe laughed cruelly. "You'll never fit in here. You know that, right? This school, this town, it's not for people like you." "People like me?" I asked quietly. "Poor people," she said bluntly. "People with nothing." Felix found me in the darkroom later, crying while pretending to organize supplies. He didn't say anything, just sat beside me in companionable silence. "She's wrong, you know," he finally said. "You're not nothing. Your work has more soul than anything Chloe's ever photographed." "Soul doesn't pay bills," I said bitterly. "No, but talent does. Eventually." He pulled out his phone. "Look, I follow this photographer on Instagram, Valentina Cross. She started out homeless, photographing street life with a disposable camera. Now she's one of the most celebrated documentary photographers in the world. Your work reminds me of hers." I looked at Valentina Cross's feed. Her images were raw, powerful, unflinching, exactly the kind of photography I aspired to create. "Thanks, Felix," I whispered. "You're going to win that competition," he said confidently. "I can feel it." The night before the results were announced, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what $5,000 could mean. My mother's car needed repairs. Our rent was always late. I wanted to buy her something nice for once, something she didn't have to save for months to afford. But more than the money, I wanted validation. I wanted proof that my vision mattered, that I wasn't just a charity case taking up space. The next morning, Ms. Reyes announced she'd received the competition results and would reveal them after school in the photography lab. The day dragged endlessly. I couldn't focus in any class. Chloe kept shooting me smug looks, clearly confident she'd won. Finally, 3 o'clock arrived. The photography club gathered in the lab, tension thick in the air. Ms. Reyes smiled mysteriously. "Before I announce our school's results, I want to say that I'm proud of everyone who submitted work. You all showed courage and creativity." "Just tell us who won," Chloe interrupted impatiently. Ms. Reyes' smile widened. The competition had 500 entries from schools across the region. 3rd place went to Jackson High. 2nd place went to Riverside Academy. She paused dramatically. 1st place went to Westfield High. The winning photograph was Inheritance by Maya Torres. The room went silent. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Felix let out a whoop and hugged me. Ms. Reyes was grinning. Chloe's face had gone pale. "That's impossible," she said. "They made a mistake." "No mistake," Ms. Reyes said firmly, handing me an official letter. "Maya's photograph will be featured in the next issue of Art Today magazine. She'll also receive the $5,000 prize and an invitation to the Youth Photography Summit in New York City." My hands shook as I read the letter. It was real. I'd actually won. The girl they called Nothing had beaten 500 competitors, including Chloe with her expensive equipment and perfect lighting. "This is ridiculous," Chloe said, her voice rising. "They obviously have some diversity quota to fill. This is charity, not merit." Ms. Reyes' expression hardened. "Chloe, that's enough. Maya won because her photograph was the best. Period. If you can't handle that graciously, you can leave." Chloe grabbed her designer bag and stormed out, Amber following. But I barely noticed. I was staring at the letter, at my name in print, at words like exceptional talent and remarkable vision. Felix squeezed my shoulder. "I told you." That evening, I showed my mother the letter and the check. she cried, pulling me into a tight embrace. Mija, I'm so proud of you. I always knew you were special. It's not charity, I whispered, still processing. I actually won. Of course you won, she said fiercely. You're brilliant. Anyone with eyes can see that. But as I lay in bed that night, Chloe's words haunted me. Diversity quota. Charity. Would people always question if I truly deserve my success? Art Today magazine published my photograph the following month. Seeing Inheritance in print, accompanied by a full-page feature about my background and artistic vision, felt surreal. The article described me as an emerging talent who finds profound beauty in overlooked communities and praised my raw, authentic perspective that challenges viewers to reconsider their assumptions about poverty and dignity. Orders started coming in. Local businesses wanted prints for their offices. Community organizations requested permission to use the image in their promotional materials. People I'd never met reached out on social media, saying my work moved them. And then came an email that changed everything. Dear Ms. Torres, my name is Helena Voss, and I'm a senior editor at Visionary magazine. I was deeply impressed by your photograph, Inheritance, and would like to discuss a potential feature about young photographers creating social impact through their art. Would you be interested in participating? We would also love to see more of your portfolio. Visionary magazine. It was one of the most prestigious photography publications in the country. I had to read the email 3 times to believe it was real. I responded immediately, attaching my full portfolio, every photograph I'd taken over the past 3 years. Then I waited, barely daring to hope. Helena responded within 24 hours. Maya, your portfolio is extraordinary. We'd like to feature you in our Young Visionaries issue next quarter. The Visionary magazine shoot happened on a cold Saturday in November. They sent a journalist and photographer to document my process, following me through my neighborhood as I worked. I photographed Mr. Washington, who'd run the corner store for 40 years. I captured Isabella, a single mother of 3 who somehow always had a smile. I documented the community garden, where residents grew vegetables and built friendships. The journalist, a woman named Keisha, asked thoughtful questions about my artistic vision and background. I told her about my secondhand camera, about my mother's sacrifices, about being called nothing by classmates who couldn't see past my clothes. But you're not bitter? Keisha asked, surprised. I thought about it carefully. No, anger would cloud my vision. I photograph with love because I want people to see what I see, the strength, dignity, and beauty that exists in every community, not just wealthy ones. The feature ran 2 months later. 6 full pages, including a large spread of Inheritance and a dozen other photos from my portfolio. The headline read, Maya Torres, the teen photographer who sees beauty where others see nothing. The response was overwhelming. My social media followers jumped from 200 to 50,000 overnight. Photography blogs shared my work. Gallery owners reached out about exhibitions. And college recruiters started calling, offering full scholarships to their prestigious photography programs. At school, everything changed. Students who'd ignored me suddenly wanted to be friends. But Chloe and her group became even more hostile. One day, I found my locker vandalized with the words charity case scrawled in permanent marker. My camera, which I'd stored inside, was missing. I reported it to the principal, my hands shaking with rage and tears. That camera was my life, my tool, my escape. Without it, I was lost. The security footage showed Chloe and Amber breaking into my locker. They were suspended for a week, but my camera was never recovered. Chloe's wealthy parents paid a fine, and that was that. I was devastated. I couldn't afford a replacement. All my opportunities suddenly felt impossible without equipment. But the story leaked to local news. Successful teen photographer's camera stolen by jealous classmates made headlines. Suddenly, everyone knew what had happened. Within days, photographers from around the country started sending me equipment. A professional photographer in California mailed me her backup Canon. A gear company sent me a complete kit, camera, lenses, tripod, everything. A local camera shop offered me free supplies for life. You deserves better than that taped-together camera anyway, the shop owner said, helping me set up my new equipment. Now you can show them what you're really capable of. The outpouring of support made me cry. People I'd never met were investing in my dreams, simply because they believed in my talent. Chloe returned from suspension to find me with professional equipment and even more attention than before. Her attempt to destroy me had backfired spectacularly. The Youth Photography Summit in New York City happened over spring break. I'd never been on a plane before, never stayed in a hotel, never seen a city like New York. The summit brought together 50 young photographers from around the world. We attended workshops led by industry legends, visited famous galleries, and networked with editors and agents. I felt out of place at first. Most attendees came from wealthy families, had been taking photography classes since childhood, and carried equipment worth tens of thousands of dollars. But when we shared our work, something shifted. My photographs sparked different conversations. They made people uncomfortable in a good way, challenging them to see beyond their bubbles. A documentary photographer named James Cole pulled me aside after my presentation. "Your work reminds me why I started photography, to reveal truth and create empathy. Most young photographers just imitate what's trending. You're creating something genuinely important." He introduced me to his agent, a sharp woman named Naomi Quinn. "I'd like to represent you," Naomi said directly. "You're young, but you have a unique voice the industry needs. I can help you build a real career." I was 17 years old, and a top photography agent wanted to represent me. On the flight home, I stared out the window at clouds, thinking about how far I'd come. 1 year ago, I'd been nothing. Now, I was becoming something. But the best was yet to come. Senior year of high school became a whirlwind. Naomi secured me several commissions: a photo essay for a nonprofit magazine, documentation of a community center renovation, even a small assignment for a national newspaper. I was making money doing what I loved. Not much, maybe $2,000 a month, but enough to help my mother with bills and start a college fund. My Instagram following grew to 300,000. Publications started reaching out to me instead of the other way around. And college acceptance letters poured in, all offering full scholarships for photography programs. I chose the School of Visual Arts in New York City. It was one of the best photography programs in the country, and they offered me not just tuition coverage, but also housing and a stipend for supplies. At graduation, I walked across the stage to receive not just my diploma, but also a special award for outstanding artistic achievement. The principal called me up separately to recognize my accomplishments. "Maya Torres has shown us that talent and determination can overcome any obstacle," he said as I stood beside him. "She's going to NYU in the fall on a full scholarship, and we couldn't be prouder." The audience applauded. My mother cried in the front row. Felix whistled loudly from his seat. And Chloe? She sat in the back, stone-faced, watching the girl she'd called nothing receive every accolade she'd wanted for herself. That summer, Naomi called with an opportunity that seemed impossible. Valentina Cross is curating a group exhibition at the Morrison Gallery in Manhattan, Emerging Voices in Documentary Photography. She wants to include you. Valentina Cross, the photographer Felix had shown me years ago, the one whose work had inspired me to believe I could make it. "She knows my work?" I asked, stunned. "Everyone knows your work now, Maya," Naomi said. "You're one of the most talked about young photographers in the country." The Morrison Gallery exhibition opened in August, just before I started college. 10 photographers were featured, most in their 30s and 40s with established careers. I was by far the youngest. I displayed a series called Home, 20 photographs documenting families in my neighborhood, showing the love, struggle, joy, and resilience that existed in places people usually dismissed as rough or dangerous. The opening night was intimidating. Art critics, collectors, and established photographers filled the gallery, all dressed in expensive clothes and speaking the language of the art world. I wore a simple black dress my mother had helped me find at a thrift store, altered to fit perfectly. I might never look like I belonged in these spaces, but I belonged because of my work. Valentina Cross approached me halfway through the evening. She was in her 50s, with silver hair and kind eyes that had seen everything. "You're Maya," she said simply. "Your work is extraordinary. Raw, honest, uncompromising. Don't ever lose that edge." "I'm terrified of losing it," I admitted. "Everyone keeps telling me I need to develop a commercial style to make money. But that feels like betraying what I believe in. Valentina smiled knowingly. I've been exactly where you are. People will always pressure you to soften your message, make your art more palatable. Don't. The world needs photographers willing to show uncomfortable truths. She introduced me to collectors and gallery owners throughout the evening. Several wanted to buy prints. One collector bought 3 photographs for $15,000 total. $15,000. For my art. I nearly cried when Naomi told me. This is just the beginning, Naomi said. Trust me, Maya. You're going to be huge. The exhibition received glowing reviews. The New York Times art critic wrote, Maya Torres's Home series challenges viewers to confront their prejudices about poverty and community. Her lens finds dignity where others see only despair, making her one of the most important emerging voices in contemporary photography. My phone exploded with opportunities. Magazine assignments, gallery inquiries, speaking invitations. I was 17 years old, starting college in 2 weeks, and somehow becoming a professional photographer. Chloe sent me a bitter message on Instagram. Must be nice to get famous off poverty porn. Some of us have actual talent. I blocked her without responding. She wasn't worth my energy anymore. College at the School of Visual Arts was challenging but exhilarating. I was surrounded by talented artists, pushed by demanding professors, and constantly inspired by New York City's creative energy. But I also faced new criticism. Some classmates, and even a few professors, questioned my work's authenticity. You're exploiting your own community, one professor said during a critique, using poverty as aesthetic material for your career advancement. His words stung, hitting a fear I'd always carried. Was I exploiting the people I photographed? Was I any different from tourists who took poverty photos in developing countries? I thought about it for days, reviewing my process and intentions. Then I realized something crucial. I wasn't an outsider. I was part of this community. I photographed with respect, always asking permission, always sharing the stories behind the images. My subjects trusted me because I was one of them. I addressed this in my next critique. I'm not exploiting my community. I'm giving them visibility. These are my neighbors, my friends, my family. I'm showing the world what they typically ignore, that poor neighborhoods aren't just statistics or problems. They're full of real people with dignity, dreams, and beauty. The professor nodded slowly. That's a fair distinction. Just be careful. The line between representation and exploitation is thin. His warning stayed with me, making me more thoughtful about every photograph I took. By sophomore year, my career had expanded beyond anything I'd imagined. I was getting assignments from major publications, National Geographic, Time Magazine, The New Yorker. My day rate had climbed to $2,000. I was 19 years old and financially stable for the first time in my life. I moved my mother out of our cramped apartment into a nice 2-bedroom in a better neighborhood. I paid off her debts. I bought her a new car. Mija, this is too much, she protested when I handed her the car keys. You sacrificed everything for me, I said firmly. This is just the beginning of me paying you back. She cried, holding me tight. I'm so proud of who you've become. But success brought new pressures. My agent wanted me to accept every opportunity, maximize earning potential, build my brand. Galleries wanted regular output for shows. Magazines needed quick turnarounds. Photography was starting to feel like work instead of passion. I was shooting an assignment in Chicago when I received an email that changed everything again. Dear Ms. Torres, I'm reaching out on behalf of the CEO of Momentum, a new fashion and lifestyle brand launching next year. We're looking for a photographer to lead our creative direction and be the face of our brand. Your authentic voice and powerful aesthetic align perfectly with our vision of celebrating diversity and real beauty. Would you be interested in discussing this opportunity? Fashion photography. That wasn't my world at all. But the email mentioned a salary that made my eyes widen, $300,000 annually, plus creative control. I almost ignored the email. Fashion felt like the opposite of everything I stood for, superficial, focused on consumption, celebrating wealth and beauty standards that excluded most people. But curiosity made me respond. Tell me more about your vision. The CEO, a woman named Zara Blake, called me directly. Maya, I've followed your work for 2 years. You photograph real people with such dignity and beauty. That's what's missing in fashion, authenticity. Every brand shows perfect bodies in perfect settings. I want to show real beauty, real diversity, real life. That sounds amazing in theory, I said cautiously. But how do you do that while still selling expensive clothes? By redefining what luxury means, Zara explained. Momentum won't be about exclusivity. We'll create quality, affordable fashion while celebrating all body types, races, ages, and backgrounds. And we want you as creative director of photography with complete control over aesthetic direction. Why me? I've never shot fashion. Exactly. You see people, not mannequins. You find beauty authentically. That's what we need. I asked for time to think. $300,000 would change my life completely. But would it change who I was? I called Valentina Cross for advice. Is this selling out? I asked bluntly. She laughed. Maya, making money from your art isn't selling out. Compromising your vision is selling out. If you can maintain creative control and stay true to your aesthetic, why not? I accepted the position with one condition. I'd maintain my documentary work alongside the fashion photography. Momentum agreed, even supporting my personal projects as part of their social responsibility initiative. The announcement made industry headlines. Documentary photographer Maya Torres named creative director for revolutionary fashion brand Momentum. Reactions were mixed. Some photographers praised the move as bringing artistic integrity to fashion. Others criticized me for selling out to commercial interests. Chloe, who'd been attending a mediocre college and posting occasional photos on Instagram, sent me a scathing message. Guess even authentic photographers have a price. Hope the money's worth your integrity. I blocked her again. After all these years, she was still trying to tear me down. My first Momentum campaign launched 6 months later. We photographed models of all sizes, ages, and backgrounds in real neighborhoods, not sterile studios. The campaign tagline was Real Beauty, Real Stories. One model was a 60-year-old grandmother. Another was a teenage girl with vitiligo. We included someone in a wheelchair, a plus-size dancer, a trans man, an immigrant family. And we didn't retouch the photos beyond basic color correction. Wrinkles stayed. Stretch marks stayed. The realness stayed. The campaign went viral immediately. Social media exploded with praise and emotional reactions. Finally, a fashion brand that looks like real people was a common response. Within 3 months, Momentum became one of the fastest-growing fashion brands in the country. And my face was everywhere. Interviews, magazine covers, speaking engagements. I'd become, somehow, a spokesperson for authentic representation in media. At 21, I was named to Forbes' 30 Under 30 list in the art and style category. The profile described me as the photographer who revolutionized fashion by refusing to compromise her documentary roots. I was invited to speak at photography conferences, universities, and corporate events. My keynote speeches always focused on the same theme: seeing and celebrating people who are usually invisible. When I was 17, classmates called me nothing because I was poor, I'd say. They couldn't see past my secondhand clothes to recognize my worth. Now I photograph people the world often calls nothing: the elderly, the poor, the disabled, the unconventional. I show that they're everything. The speeches always receive standing ovations. After one event, a teenage girl approached me crying. I'm on scholarship at a rich private school, and everyone treats me like I don't belong. Your story gives me hope. I hugged her tightly. You belong everywhere your talent and character take you. Never let anyone make you feel less than. These moments reminded me why success mattered, not for ego or revenge, but for representation. Every time someone from a marginalized background succeeded visibly, it opened doors for others. Meanwhile, my personal documentary work continued. I started a long-term project photographing foster youth aging out of the system, showing their struggles and resilience. The resulting photo essay won the Pulitzer Prize for feature photography. At 22, I was one of the youngest Pulitzer winners ever. The Pulitzer ceremony in New York was surreal. I wore a dress designed specifically for me by Momentum's lead designer, elegant but not flashy, honoring my roots while celebrating my success. Accepting the award, I thanked my mother first. She cleaned houses so I could dream bigger than our circumstances. This award belongs to her. I also thanked Ms. Reyes, my high school photography teacher who'd first encouraged me, Felix, who'd supported me when everyone else dismissed me, and the communities I'd photographed who trusted me with their stories. The ceremony was covered extensively by media. Photos of me accepting the Pulitzer were shared millions of times. I became, whether I wanted it or not, a symbol of overcoming adversity through talent and determination. My Instagram following hit 10 million. My exhibition openings drew crowds of thousands. Museums started acquiring my work for permanent collections. And then I got the call that brought everything full circle. Maya, this is Andrew Foster from the National Portrait Gallery in Washington, D.C. We're curating an exhibition called American Faces, a new generation of portrait photography. We'd like you to be one of 5 featured photographers. And we'd like to commission a new series specifically for this show. The National Portrait Gallery, one of the most prestigious art institutions in the country, wanted my work in their permanent collection. The commission came with artistic freedom and a budget of $50,000. I knew immediately what I wanted to create, a series called Inheritance, expanding on the single photograph that had started everything. I spent 6 months traveling to communities across America, photographing mentorship moments, grandmothers teaching grandchildren, teachers with students, coaches with athletes, elders passing knowledge to younger generations. But I focused specifically on relationships that crossed socioeconomic lines, showing how wisdom and dignity existed regardless of wealth. The final series included 30 photographs. One showed Mrs. Chun from my old neighborhood, still teaching sewing. Another captured a formerly incarcerated man mentoring at-risk youth. A third featured my own mother teaching a cooking class at the community center. The exhibition opened to massive critical acclaim. The Washington Post called it a profound meditation on how communities survive and thrive through intergenerational connection, rendered with stunning visual poetry. At the opening reception, I stood in the National Portrait Gallery surrounded by my work, watching strangers moved to tears by photographs of people they'd usually walk past without noticing. A woman approached me, well-dressed and middle-aged. "Your work changed how I see my own city," she said. "I drive through bad neighborhoods every day without really seeing the people. Now I can't unsee them. That was the whole point. Making the invisible visible. Giving dignity to those society dismissed." After the National Portrait Gallery exhibition, I decided to do something I had been avoiding for years, return to Westfield High to speak to current students. Ms. Reyes had been asking me for years, but I'd always declined. Too many painful memories. Too much unresolved anger at how I'd been treated. But it was time. Not for closure, I'd moved past needing that, but to show current students like me that they could make it too. The auditorium was packed when I arrived. Students, teachers, and community members filled every seat. Ms. Reyes introduced me with tears in her eyes, describing how I'd gone from a scholarship student with a broken camera to one of the most celebrated photographers in America. I took the microphone, looking out at the faces. Some students looked inspired. Others looked skeptical, probably wondering if success like mine was possible for them. When I attended the school, I began. Students called me nothing because I wore thrift store clothes and couldn't afford the same things as everyone else. Teachers sometimes looked at me with pity, like my poverty was something to be ashamed of. The room was completely silent. But poverty isn't shameful. Being cruel is shameful. Looking down on others is shameful. My circumstances didn't define my worth, my character and work did. I showed my journey through photographs, the taped-together camera, Inheritance, the Visionary magazine spread, Momentum campaigns, and finally the Pulitzer Prize ceremony. I didn't succeed despite being poor, I continued. My perspective as someone from an overlooked community gave me a unique vision. I saw beauty where others saw nothing because I knew we were everything. After my talk, students lined up to ask questions and take photos. Many shared their own stories of feeling invisible or looked down on. One girl, maybe 15, approached nervously. "I'm on scholarship here too. Everyone makes me feel like I don't belong. How did you deal with it?" "I let their doubt fuel my determination," I said honestly. "But more importantly, I found my own measure of worth. I didn't need their validation once I believed in myself." As the crowd dispersed, I saw someone waiting by the exit. Chloe. She looked different, older, less polished than I remembered. Her confidence had been replaced by something that looked like regret. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. I almost said no, but curiosity won. We walked to an empty classroom, the same hallway where she'd once called me nothing. "I owe you an apology," Chloe said, not meeting my eyes. "I was cruel to you for no reason except my own insecurity. Watching your success while my own life went nowhere made me realize how wrong I was about everything." "What happened?" I asked, not unkindly. She laughed bitterly. "I went to college, dropped out, moved back home. My parents are disappointed. I work at my dad's office doing meaningless tasks. And I see your face everywhere. Magazines, billboards, museums. The girl I called nothing became everything I wanted to be. I didn't feel triumphant or vindicated. Just sad for wasted years and unnecessary cruelty. Why were you so mean to me, Chloe? What did I ever do to you?" She finally looked at me, eyes red. "You didn't do anything. That was the problem. You had nothing. No money, no status, no advantages, and you were still talented. Still confident in a quiet way. It made me feel like my advantages didn't matter, like maybe I wasn't actually special. So you try to make me feel small to make yourself feel big," I said, understanding. "Yes," she whispered. "And I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I realize how wrong I was." I thought about it for a long moment. Chloe's apology didn't erase the pain she'd caused or give me back those years of self-doubt. But holding on to anger would only hurt me. "I accept your apology," I said finally. "Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. What you did was cruel, but I've moved past letting it define me." Chloe nodded, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you, and congratulations on everything you've achieved. You deserve it all." After she left, I stood in that classroom for a while, thinking about the girl I used to be, scared, hurt, desperate to prove she was worth something. That girl had fought so hard to get here. She'd earned every bit of success through talent, determination, and refusing to shrink herself for anyone's comfort. Today, I'm 25 years old. My work hangs in museums across the country. I've published 2 photography books, both bestsellers. Momentum has become a billion-dollar company, and I maintain creative control over every campaign. But more importantly, I've stayed true to my vision. I still photograph the communities and people that others overlook. I still use my platform to advocate for representation and dignity for marginalized groups. I started a foundation that provides cameras and training to young people from low-income backgrounds, giving them the tools to tell their own stories. We've supported over 500 young photographers so far, helping several launch professional careers. My mother retired from cleaning houses. She now volunteers at the community center, teaching cooking classes and helping other immigrant families navigate the system. She lives in a beautiful home I bought for her, finally comfortable after decades of struggle. And Felix? He became a successful commercial photographer, and we still collaborate on projects. He was right that day in the darkroom years ago. I did win that competition. But I won so much more than that. Last month, I was invited to give the commencement speech at the School of Visual Arts. Standing before graduating students, I shared the lesson it took me years to learn. When people call you nothing, they're really revealing their own inability to see. They're showing their limited vision, their narrow definition of worth. Don't let their blindness become your reality. You are not defined by their perceptions. You are defined by your character, your work, and your refusal to let anyone diminish you. I paused, looking at the sea of faces, students from every background, all of them about to step into uncertain futures. I was called nothing because I was poor, because my camera was held together with tape, because I didn't fit someone else's narrow definition of belonging. But I took that word and transformed it. I showed that the people and places society calls nothing are actually everything, full of beauty, dignity, strength, and stories worth telling. The audience rose in a standing ovation. I saw students crying, inspired by the possibility that they too could overcome whatever obstacles they faced. After the ceremony, a young photographer approached me, a girl who reminded me of my 17-year-old self. She wore secondhand clothes and carried a beat-up camera. "I'm from the South Side," she said shyly. "Everyone at school treats me like I don't belong. But I saw your work, and it gave me hope. If you made it, maybe I can too. I hugged her tightly. You absolutely can. And here's something to help. I handed her one of the professional cameras from my gear bag. This is yours now. Use it to show the world what you see. Use it to prove that where you come from doesn't determine where you're going. She stared at the camera, then at me, tears streaming down her face. I can't accept this. It's too expensive. Someone gave me cameras when mine was stolen, I said. Now I'm passing it forward. All I ask is that when you make it, and you will, you help someone else climb too. That's what success really means. Not the awards or the money or the recognition, though those things are nice. Success means using your platform to lift others, to show that the path you walked can be walked by others too. The girl they called nothing became the face of everything. But more importantly, I became someone who helps others see that they're not nothing either. That every person has inherent worth and dignity regardless of their circumstances. That beauty and talent exist everywhere if you're willing to look. I drove home that evening through my old neighborhood, past the community center where I'd photographed Mrs. Chin all those years ago. Past the corner store where Mr. Washington still worked. Past the apartment building where I'd grown up feeling small and invisible. This place had shaped me. The struggle, the pain, the hunger to prove myself, all of it had forged who I'd become. I didn't resent it anymore. I was grateful for it. My phone buzzed with a text from Valentina Cross. Saw your commencement speech online. You're doing exactly what you were meant to do. Proud of you. I smiled, typing back. Thank you for showing me it was possible. Because that's what we do for each other. We show that the impossible is actually achievable. We light the path so others can follow. The girl they called nothing had become everything she dreamed of and more. But the real victory wasn't the success itself. It was staying true to my vision throughout the journey. It was never forgetting where I came from or who I was fighting for. It was using every platform, every opportunity, every bit of recognition to amplify voices that usually go unheard. Chloe had tried to make me small by calling me nothing. Instead, she'd given me fuel to become everything. And now, standing on the other side of that struggle, I understood something profound. The people who try to diminish you are often fighting their own battles with inadequacy. Their cruelty says nothing about your worth and everything about their fear. I parked outside my apartment, a beautiful loft in a converted warehouse, walls covered with photographs that told stories of resilience and dignity. This space was mine, earned through talent and determination, a physical representation of how far I'd traveled from that cramped apartment where I'd dreamed impossible dreams. Tomorrow, I'd fly to London for an exhibition at the Tate Modern. Next month, I'd shoot a cover for Vogue featuring real people instead of professional models. In the fall, my third photography book would publish, focusing on immigrant communities across America. But tonight, I just sat in my quiet loft, holding the camera that had started everything, the $5 garage sale find that I'd fixed with tape and determination. I kept it all these years as a reminder that worth isn't measured in equipment or money or status. It's measured in vision, in compassion, in the courage to see beauty where others see nothing. The girl they called nothing had become the face of everything by refusing to accept anyone else's definition of her value. And that, more than any award or achievement, was the real victory.